Well, hello everyone. Really pleased to have you joining me alongside for a little session where I'm going to take some reflections back on the connections and the relationships that were made during lockdown and how we can really kind of make those connections matter and why it's really important as well. But I guess a nice place to start off while I was thinking about it is, what is the power of connection and why do we want to find connections? Well, I think, as human beings, we've always been able to find connections and we've always known that's really important to our well-being. And I think if you look back at some of the sessions today, like Kat's session or Avid and Stephanie talking over their cup of tea, it is important about expanding that PLN and finding people you can connect with. And I guess I wanted to dive a little deeper into how we could really foster those connections and what we can learn about it. And, real connection is more than just kind of talking to other people or sharing our interests, because, after all, if we think about it, we could talk to someone for well over an hour about, sports, politics, but you don't have to really, secretly, you could even say, actually, I can't even really stand that person. So connecting with others is that kind of sense of being open and making yourself available to another person. And I think as teachers and educators and support colleagues who support those kind of learning environments, we're very good at that. And I guess if we can understand the process behind that, or have a bit more thinking about the power of those connections, how we make that availability, then that can be really important in helping us do it even more, do it more effectively. And I think, when we moved online, we needed to find ways to be able to digitally support each other. And part of that, I think, is about, finding compassion and empathy and having a huge amount of goodwill to the person that you're connecting with and understanding their position or their situation in life. So, we will have a little look at those words. But I think before we do that, a little look back into kind of, maybe the history of connection. And, I love this screenshot that I took not too early on in that first lockdown, where I was regularly getting together with a group of educators who wanted to be Google for Education certified trainers, but as well as wanting to go through that process of being able to help other people and provide training and feel like they'd achieved some certification. They also wanted to find connection. They also wanted to find a support network for each other. And because of the conditions and the times that we were living in, that connection had to be done by digital technology. And lots of people had lots of different support groups at that time. I know I was jumping on loads of calls with lots of different groups of people, but it got me thinking. If we go right back to the kind of beginnings of time when humans really were cave people, all our connection at that time was synchronous connection. We were all able to have conversations, and if you didn't see the person, bar maybe leaving some cave drawings for them or making some marks on the ground or laying some sticks and stones out, there wasn't really any other way of communicating, and all our communication was happening synchronously. But actually, as humans, we found a way of getting ourselves out of sync, and we became asynchronous almost. So this idea of being able to write a letter, drop it in the post box. I imagine our postal service is as quick as it was in 1660, when we in the UK here had the world's first postal service. So that kind of got us out of sync, and it was great to be able to send messages over long distance or be able to keep in contact. But that synchronous connection and that spark that you get from doing something live or having that in-person conversation got a little bit lost, I guess. And then we move on a little bit in time, and of course Thomas Edison created the telephone, and I think the telephone, is such an important communication tool for putting the world back in sync, and we were able to communicate live to one another, and picking up the phone, and we all use the word hello, don't we? But the word hello had to come from creating a word to start a telephone conversation to make sure we had a connection. So there's some really interesting roots behind that word hello. But we as humans, being like we are, we managed to be able to then make things a bit more complicated by taking this idea of being able to post a letter, and with the advent of computers, managed to be able to make that asynchronous. And of course, email did that for us. So this idea of electronic mail, drop somebody an email, and they might be able to reply immediately. But if you email them in the middle of the night, it might be a few days or a bit of time before they did reply. They could just choose to ignore it, actually, which might be just downright rude. So it's good in terms of the sense that when we had our lockdown and we ended up all having to stay at home, we were fortunate enough to have, going back to my connection slide here, we were fortunate enough to be able to be back in sync and to be able to see, pretty decent quality images of people on our screens with audio that matches up. And we were able to look and find ways to be able to harness that connection as a group of educators, support colleagues, or people did it for their work, of course, as well. So we wanted to be able to harness and use that digital technology. But while we were in lockdown, it wasn't just the connections that I was making online, which I really valued and really enjoyed, my time with. It was also family time, and being at home all day, every day with your family really impressed upon me the importance of having good, strong relationships there, and being able to enjoy things which were either in your own house or locally quite close to you. You didn't really have any opportunity to be able to go out and potentially go and see other people or break up the routine that you found. So you were really forced to be together. And that time for me, I've got 3 children, and I've got a 4th one on the way. That was really exciting and really special for me. But what made me feel a bit sad was one of my colleagues didn't have any family close by. So the only communication they were really having was when they were connecting with other people online, and they were in one of the groups that I was regularly meeting with. And in many ways, those different groups that she was meeting with, they became her support network. They almost became an extended family. And this made me realize that when we're having online communication, especially when it's in groups, it can be quite difficult to have those one-to-one conversations, or be able to have the little types of conversations that you have if you were in person in a room. And it's those tiny conversations, it's those little interactions that are really important when you're developing a connection. And if we're having just lots of group meetings, or we're not having people able to feel like they can engage, then actually we can all become quite separated and isolated, even though we're coming together. So when using technology, I thought, well, it's really important for me to be able to understand and develop that connection. And I think I wanted to explore, well, what's the driver behind that's going to help that? Well, I think what really summed it up for me was this idea of empathy, and I really wrestled with what that should look like. So at first, when you think of empathy, you think about walking in someone's shoes, and can you really empathize with someone's situation? Sometimes that's quite a hard thing to do, but I wonder if empathy is more about showing warmth and kindness and tolerance towards other people. It's not about having been in their shoes, or trying to embrace or excuse a behavior of theirs. It's more about understanding. So if we can shift our mindset so that we are trying to understand where that person or that individual, that group of people, you're trying to understand their thinking patterns, trying to understand their perspective, then that can really help develop the connection with them. So you need to be able to bring a bit of balance into your thought process there. And there will always be things that you don't know, and being honest about what you don't know, and just being interested in the kind of underlying philosophies, their thought processes. I'm trying to understand what makes that person tick, those characteristics that can help you strengthen the relationship. And when you start to get stronger relationships, then that's when you start to see creativity in your conversations coming through. This idea that you're connecting more effectively, so you work together better, you collaborate more effectively. And I was keen to go, well, actually, if empathy is something that can help me strengthen the relationships and the connections that I have with other people, then how can I take it further? How can I move this along so that I can really maximize the most out of the connections with the people I have? Well, there is a term, there is some research that's happened behind it, and in my exploration about trying to understand connection and relationships, especially when we're working online, I came across this idea of practical empathy, and I'm not sure if this is where the key for creating strong relationships will be, but it might certainly help. So practical empathy, quite a bit of stuff I looked at was really focused about how businesses were trying to gather data and compare kind of patterns of behavior of kind of larger groups of people to make better decisions, to be able to improve their strategy, or help them collaborate successfully within teams. But I think as educators or as humans, we can take many of the ideas of that in terms of being able to understand somebody's point of view, understand what intrinsically motivates them, and what I think I said earlier, what makes them tick. And we can do that by actively listening to them and engaging actively in the conversations we have. We need to be able to interpret what they're saying and understand the motivations behind what they're saying and interpret what that means. So empathy is gained through actively listening, gaining that respect, and interpreting what is said. And then as the relationship strengthens and that connection builds, well, it becomes more than that. It becomes working with them and analyzing maybe the challenges that they face, or analyze the situations that they're in. And that allows us to move to somewhere where we can think about and talk about creating solutions or seeing routes forwards. And that is important if we want people to maybe not get themselves stuck in a rut, or we want to be able to celebrate some of their successes, or amplify the work they're doing. So the key actions that we are taking as individuals will strengthen and build those relationships. And that can be simple actions like being respectful, showing kindness, being supportive, and being non-judgmental in that support. And sometimes that's really difficult for us to do because we might not agree with something. It might not be the way we would do something, but sometimes you have to let people find their own way, and you're a guiding support along that journey. And you might be able to change the direction, but if you can't change the direction, then you might have to neutralize how you feel about that situation and just give them a balanced response and be supportive in the actions and the words that you take. And that relationship where people are truly connecting and supporting with each other is going to be far more effective than something that's confrontational, or you being quite directive and telling people what they should be doing. Because ultimately, why do we want to harness the power of empathy? Why do we want to use practical empathy? Well, I think that is important because we want to be able to create new possibilities for that person. And I think that person, whether it's a colleague, an individual that we know, or learners that we're working with in a school, it's about creating possibilities so that they can change their direction, change their direction of travel. So I'm going to finish off by leaving us with a bit of a question, which is, where can you create possibilities? So as innovators, I know that we are all about creating possibilities. We're all about harnessing the power of connection, and we're also all about redefining how we use technology and what technology looks like, either for ourselves or for our learners. So we want to be able to continue driving that forwards, and we want to continue making change, but we want to do that in a way where people aren't feeling overly nervous or concerned or worried or anxious. We want to be taking all of that away, or minimizing that if we can, so people feel supported. They know our approaches are non-judgmental. They know that they have our unwavering support to be able to create new possibilities. And they've been quite heavily involved with the Google for Education coach program. And I think that's one of the things that I've also tried to do more of, is be less judgmental, less trying to explain to people what they should be doing or how they could be doing it. And I'm certainly more question-based, and I'm asking for them to reflect upon and consider and think about how they can change what they want to do. So my closing question to you is, where can you create possibilities? Thank you very much.